Welcome back to the London Free Press podcast. I'm your host, Lindsay Barnett. We were off last week, took a quick vacation with my 6-week-old vacation. I use that term very lightly. It was nice to get away, especially last week and into the weekend. Things have been kind of dark in the city of London, and I wish it was under better circumstances that I am joined with London Free Press reporter Calvi Leon. We have to talk there. There's been a lot, I want to call it a dark cloud over Western University. So first, how are you doing, Calvi?
I'm doing well, thank you. Thanks for having me. Yeah, it's definitely been an overwhelming past couple of days, I imagine, for many Western students. So there's been a lot going on, but yeah.
Yeah, so I feel like every year, I've lived in London for going on 11 years. Western students get a little rowdy. FOCO gets rowdy, homecoming gets rowdy. This isn't new. We saw some issues last year with the pandemic and partying still going on and COVID cases rising. We seem to be in a similar situation again this year. It started right away with the parties and the mayor condemning these parties. So let's talk a little bit about what was going on Ruffdale, because it has been not a good start to the school year for Western students.
For sure. Yeah, no, I mean, there have been a lot of comments made from officials and also a lot of videos that were circulated on social media over the past week, specifically in regards to during orientation week, a lot of the partying that was happening on Ruffdale, which is, a known street for partying among students, and also around residences. So I think it's definitely concerning to see that there was that volume of students and that much partying that's been happening, especially given that we are still in the pandemic. And so I know that separate from everything that has come to light in recent days, it was already a major concern for many people in London and the Western community.
So let's fast forward, partying obviously still continuing. We hit the weekend and all of a sudden there is a death of a student, 18-year-old Gabriel Meal. What do we know so far about this?
Yeah, so we heard about the death from London police of 18-year-old Gabriel Meal, as you mentioned. And so what we do know is that he was assaulted at Western and Sarnia Roads, which is just outside campus grounds. He was assaulted around 2 a.m. on Saturday. And so he was in critical condition and taken to hospital. And then he later was pronounced dead in hospital, which is incredibly unfortunate. This was just a first-year student who was just starting off at Western. A lot of his friends and his former teacher described him as a really kind guy. And, it's just, we don't know any details regarding what happened there, just other than that it was an assault. So definitely not something that many students are grappling well with right now.
Just to give Londoners some perspective, if you don't know exactly where it happened, there's a 7-Eleven and a Subway right at that intersection. It happened in and around there. Now, Calvi, I know that you've spent a lot of time talking to Western students. CTV London was given a statement from Gabe's family. What are students on campus saying? Because it's been a while since I was a student in London. I went to college here. And as a Londoner, I'm rattled by this. What are students saying?
Yeah, I've spoken to several students just the past 2 days, really. I was on campus even yesterday speaking to a few people who are on the same floor as Gabriel, and they are all, quite frankly, like they are all shaken up. You can see it when I'm speaking to them. Like a lot of them are very much on edge, and they're overwhelmed given the death of Gabriel and also just many other things that are happening right now on campus. I think people are scared and a lot of unanswered questions, right? Like people aren't sure. People don't know what happened, how it happened. Many people are asking why it was that, Gabriel was involved. We don't have these answers. And, London police did come out yesterday and say that they did clarify that speculation and they did clarify any rumors. And they did say that, the Gabriel's death was completely unrelated to any of the allegations that were made. So I just wanted to reiterate that message because there were definitely some mixed messaging that were happening online. And so the two issues are completely separate, but definitely students are shaken up and, they're really concerned right now.
Now, we've been using the word allegations a lot. There's a whole other sidebar issue going on. It kind of started online and has been unraveling. London police are now involved. So we need to talk about this just a little bit. And I don't know, maybe you can help me kind of weed through because everything that I was reading online, that there was 30 female students who had been sexually assaulted over the weekend at various parties. London Police and now Western has finally issued a statement saying, I think there are only 3 or 4 that had launched a formal investigation. So what do we know about this so far? Because this is just bad on worse.
Yeah, for sure. So, I mean, there's been a lot of different allegations and reports circulating online. What we do know is that a lot of it did start from social media, specifically the social media app that a lot of young people use called TikTok. And that's where the number of, of reports of upwards of 30 people were involved. Specifically, these allegations and alleged reports are coming from specifically pertaining to Medway City Hall residents, which is first-year residents on campus. And so there has been many different things said, but we do know is that the London Police is investigating. They're working with the university, and they have confirmed that there have been 3 formal complaints that have been made, but those are separate and unrelated to the allegations pertaining to Medway City Hall residents. And then what we do know about those 3 formal complaints is that there are 4 women involved, 4 Western female students and 1 male student. We do know that the male student was arrested and taken into custody, but was later released, and no charges have been made at all. And so the police did come out, the London's police chief did come out yesterday and said that so far, and the investigation has revealed that they've received no reports and no one's come forward in relation specifically to MedCit residents. And so, that's still underway, but there's really not a lot of details or information that's been made clear so far.
This has rattled not only students, but also Londoners. Mayor Ed Holder held a press conference earlier this week to talk about just kind of everything, saying, obviously there's investigations going on with police, but this kind of activity will not be tolerated. I know that a lot of it has to do with the partying. And again, we're so new into the school year. Everything is so fresh. And I get it. I was a student once. I loved going out on Friday night and Saturday night. And it's part of a rite of passage, right? Like, you go to school, you're out partying with your friends, you're trying to meet new people, especially if you're not from whatever school you're going to. I completely understand, but this is also impacting other businesses, right? You guys spoke to a business owner near Ruffdale who this is affecting hours because the partying has been so intense.
Completely. It's affected business owners, it's affected people in the area, even just residents and even students themselves. Students themselves, I think that's an interesting point that should be made, because they themselves are I think, taken back by the amount of partying and the amount of things that have been happening. And so it's definitely been, it's had a huge impact on the surrounding area. And, like, as you mentioned, Mayor Ed Holder came out and made some comments earlier this week, and you can tell, like, he's angry with what's been happening. He said it shouldn't be tolerated, along with some other officials, including Alan Shepard, president of Western, who also said the same thing yesterday. So definitely seeing a huge impact on a lot of people in the area.
You're definitely more connected than I am, with your ear to the ground with regards to this story and everything that's happening at Western. There's already been a lot of chatter online and in a lot of free press articles saying that the school year is going to be in jeopardy if this kind of behavior keeps up. Do you see in-person classes kind of coming to a halt if something doesn't change?
Honestly, I don't really have an answer to that in terms of what I personally think, but I do think that's definitely something that's being considered right now. Based off of how things are going, I think what's important to note is even just how people are moving their way through campus right now. And I've spoken to so many students who've said, especially a lot of young women who've said they're even afraid to just walk around. And so I think what's something that's really important is to recognize that there does need to be support and resources in place for these people. In terms of classes and things being in person, I'm not too sure what will happen moving forward. That's something that we'll have to wait and see whether Western officials will come out and say something, or whether it's related to the pandemic. I'm not quite sure, but I think what's really important is that there's a lot of people who are shaken up. And, I spoke to one young student in MedCit the other day, and she's from a different province, and she said something that stuck with me. And it was, that, it was within 4 days of her being at Western. She's not from here. Her residence is supposed to be a place she calls her home. And she said, she doesn't feel safe. A lot of people don't feel safe. And how do you stay on campus, and how do you go about figuring out who you are, figuring out what you enjoy, your program, being a first year student when you don't even feel safe in your own residence? And I think it's just something that I know a lot of people are providing support and working on right now. And I will say something that I'm not sure if you were going to get to or not, but I will say that something that's really awesome so far that's come out of this is that the community is coming together. It's very clear that students want to speak up and they're demanding action from people. There's going to be a walkout on Friday that's being organized by a group of students. And I think that's something that's necessary, and definitely something that they're calling on officials for in terms of in wake of what's happened this past week.
I think as a woman who moved to a different city, coming to college 11, 12 years ago, however long it was when I moved to London, we're taught certain things from our moms about keeping our wits about us. If you have a drink at a bar and you put it down and you walk away from it, just leave it, get a new drink. This story has really hit home, and hearing about this student that you spoke to saying, if we don't feel safe at our own home on res, so to speak, where can we feel safe? And I think it is important to talk about the community coming together and this walkout that's planned. And one thing I was really impressed with is some of the organizers, not just female, there's a lot of men involved. And I think that is so crucial for support. So what kind of details do we have about this walkout so far?
Yeah, so it was a team of I spoke to the main organizer, or one of the main organizers for this walkout. A team about between 20 and 30 students really came together. They said specifically, she said, they felt compelled to do something after hearing about this, and so they're organizing this walkout, and they're calling on students to join them outside of University College Hill, which is just on the main campus, for Friday at noon. And students are two things really that they stress. One, they're showing support for survivors, for victims, for the community at large. And two, they're really speaking up and protesting against sexual violence, gender-based violence on campus. And so I think those were their two main messages, but they listed several call to actions that they want to see happen specifically from Western University in regards to policies around how to report, around gender-based and sexual violence. So Friday at noon is when they organize the walkout, and they said that they anticipate many people to come out, including students and people who are just within the London community or even outside and care. And that's really caught on in terms, especially on social media. You're seeing people from all over Canada who are speaking out about this, saying, yeah, it's, right now the focus is on Western, but this happens everywhere and this needs to be addressed. And so I think that's what that walkout will aim to do, is really bring attention to it.
That's amazing. Your article that you wrote that was published to the London Free Press this morning, the bottom there is a link to a petition that is being circulated online. If anybody wants more information about the investigation into what's going on, or to sign the petition, it can be found over at lfpress.com. Calvi, I want to thank you so much for your time. I know covering stuff like this is never fun. It's never easy. And so I want to thank you for that. And thank you so much for joining me today and for your time.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me.
We'll definitely do it again soon, and hopefully it'll be under better circumstances. If you are enjoying the London Free Press podcast, please subscribe. We really appreciate it. We are available all the time, anywhere: Spotify, Apple, Google, Stitcher, of course, over on YouTube, and of course, over at lfpress.com. We'll be back again next week with another edition of the LF Press podcast. Until then, please stay well and take care of each other.